There we go. The recording is on. Somebody is on the ball out there. Somebody's getting some things done. Oh, do you work at Humber College? Because Gina's running a viewing party.
That's fun. How many people come to a viewing party? That sounds like fun.
Yeah, I know, right? Louisa, would you like to start off? Louisa, I can hear your mic. I can hear you typing.
Oh, okay, so it is working. It wasn't, I got like an error message. So, okay, that's great. Thank you. I was just
I can hear
say,
you loud and clear. You're good.
Oh my God, I had to go into the session a few times, but okay, it's working now, so great. Okay, well, let's get things rolling. So welcome everybody. So my name is Louisa, and I'm from Algonquin College, and I'm part of the ETC committee, the Educational Technology Committee for Ontario Colleges. And it's our group that are organizing this series of webinars. So we have a great session ahead. So without I guess, taking up too much time, I will introduce the next two speakers. Just a couple things. I do want to say that there are more sessions to come. So at the end of this one, I'll just introduce the next few sessions that will be available in the next coming up weeks. And also, if you would like to be part of a subscription list, so we are thinking of starting an email distribution list where we can notify people when the next session is, then in that way you'll always sort of be up to date and connected. So without any further ado, I'm going to introduce Jocelyn and Kim Carter. So Jocelyn Wilkinson and Kim Carter, both from Conestoga College. So take it away.
Well, welcome. The presentation tool that we're going to be using today is a Mentimeter. So we'd like to invite you to go to www.menti.com, and you can use the code 397779. Now it's across the top of the screen, so if any time during the presentation you get booted out, please feel free to look there. But if you'll take a minute just to go in there, www.menti.com, code 397779. So for today's presentation, there is Jocelyn Wilkinson, the EdTech Officer from Conestoga College, and myself, Kim Carter, faculty in the Business School. So I'm going to start by telling you that I teach a course called Communication in Healthcare, and the focus is on therapeutic communication. Students are required to create and act out a skit that demonstrates a conversation between a health office administrator and a client. Students create an ineffective therapeutic communication scenario and an effective therapeutic communication scenario utilizing what they have learned in the course. They are to pose a question to their co-students to engage students in the course material and application to the work world. Students reflect on this experience, and it's part of a summative portfolio towards the end of the course. So once upon a time, I had a rubric for each group, and I marked as they presented live, with time for questions from co-students. Due to increased class sizes, multiple learning needs, and a variety of instructors teaching the course, I moved to having students produce videos, with the thought that they would upload the video to the LMS discussion board, and students would reply to the video in question and carry on a text-based discussion on the LMS discussion board. What a nightmare to mark. During the live skit, I had to ensure I was paying close attention and capturing everything on the rubric, and sometimes things were missed. Give me a thumbs up if this has ever happened to you. If you've ever tried to mark a text-based discussion board, it's pretty labor-intensive, and frankly, it was painful. Give me a like if you've had a similar experience when marking discussion boards in the LMS, text-based discussion boards. In my experience, the quality on a text-based discussion board is poor, Students mainly congratulate each other on the performance without really digging in and reflecting upon their learning and making connections to course content. Give me a like if you have had a similar experience, if that happens to you. So there is a study out that talks about feedback, and we know that when students have an opportunity to reflect upon feedback, they actually have deeper learning. And in this study, what they found was that when students provided emotional support, similar to what I experienced as people congratulating each other, while it created a positive learning environment, it didn't actually increase the learning experience by in assessing those higher order thinking skills. So anyway, after that, I decided, I really didn't want a text-based learning. I wanted an interactive tool. And so while seeking out that tool, Lisa Coster, part of my PLN, suggested looking into FlipGrid, which is what I did. So ready for the next slide, Jess. So today, you're going to have an opportunity to observe examples of FlipGrid in use as a learning tool and assessment tool. I'm going to share my experience and some cautions when using video tools. And you're going to have an opportunity to evaluate the applicability of this tool for your own teaching context. So we have a little poll for you. And this is where you'll need to make sure that you're in www.menti.com using the code 397779. So I'd like you to rate the frequency with which you currently use the following: student-produced videos, discussion boards, and peer-to-peer feedback. Oh, we're getting some answers coming in.
Nice. So certainly it seems like people really leverage discussion boards extensively in their teaching. And it looks like already a lot of people use peer-to-peer feedback in their teaching. And those are two, key elements that seem to be really effective pedagogical tools. And I wonder, many of you also identified that you experienced some of the challenges that Kim identified of, the discussion board is hard to really assess, and that it often feels a little bit flat. And I wonder if we can explore a little bit more this idea of the problem of asking students to produce videos to measure their own learning. I'm curious that fewer people identify that they use student-produced videos. What factors make you hesitant or less willing to pull that into your own teaching? Is that something you want to pull into your teaching but you're not too sure about? Use the chat window to offer some suggestions or insight as to why you're not using student-produced videos. What prevents you? Students don't always know how to make them or edit them. They're hard to mark. Yeah, they are in this really beautiful gray area of unsureness. Some people mention that they feel intimidated by the tools, even ourselves as faculty, that sometimes that there might be no control over assessments. Privacy issues, yeah, how do you make sure that that students can stay in a private infrastructure and that they're not readily shareable beyond what a student might be comfortable with? Jinli acknowledges they're not an expert in making videos, especially when it comes to adding captions. And file size limitations within the LMS, accessibility. So I hear a lot of people saying, I either don't know how to make these videos myself, or I'm worried that my students might not be comfortable making them. I want to be cognizant of privacy issues, and I want to be cognizant of accessibility issues. And so with those, I'm hopeful that by the end of today, you'll have looked at FlipGrid and you'll have seen a tool that is easy to use, that is accessible, and that does facilitate privacy. And that's a bold statement, but these are all conversations that Kim, you and I had when we started out looking for a tool that would accomplish what you were looking for. And I feel like FlipGrid can hit those if leveraged in a variety of ways.
Absolutely, and I had the same concerns when starting this assessment on video, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So let's come into our next pre-assessment. I want to get a sense of how familiar or how regularly you might already be using some really similar tools that are out there. So I would really like you to measure your own use of the following tools. So with which frequency, on a scale of 1 to 10, with which frequency do you use any of the following? So a 1 would be I've never used this tool, a 10 would be I use this all the time, and I want to know, text-based discussion boards like Slack, Teams, Reddit, or in your LMS, video chat tools like Skype, FaceTime, WhatsApp, or Google Hangouts, live selfie video like Snapchat, Instagram, or Facebook stories, or have you used FlipGrid before?
Yeah, that's good.
You
have some FlipGrid users out there already?
Yeah, maybe 1 or 2 hanging out there.
Yeah, it's great.
And I see that most people feel some degree of clear comfort with things like text-based discussion boards like Slack, Teams, Reddit, or in your LMS. There are some people who have not yet used that in their own experiences. Certainly there are a good amount of people out there who are using video chat tools like Skype, FaceTime, WhatsApp, or Google Hangouts. Certainly Skype's been around for forever. My son video chats with his grandparents on a weekly basis, and he loves it. And FlipGrid is parallel to text-based discussion boards, except that it happens to use video instead. It's the exact same experience. You post a comment and somebody replies to it. You reply to that one, they reply to that one. It's also parallel to video chat tools like Skype, FaceTime, or WhatsApp because there's that element of video. It just happens to be asynchronous instead of synchronous. It's not all happening at the same time. So if you've used text-based discussion boards before, just imagine it now that you're about to do it with like a selfie video. And if you've used video chat tools like Skype, FaceTime, or WhatsApp before, just imagine that you're about to try it out, but not live and in person. There's a bit of a delay that happens here.
And so what I would add to that is that allows for the reflection piece for students to view the video, take it away, reflect upon what they're learning, make those course connections, and come back. And hopefully in the demonstration today, you'll see that is happening.
Yeah. So Kim, you had learned from some previous experiences doing some facilitating that you wanted to kick it off with an example of what this even looks like. So I'm going to pass it over to you. I'll keep sharing my screen if that's okay with you. And I'm going to post in the chat window here a link to get into what Kim has set up for you all to see as an example of a FlipGrid she's used with her learners.
I think, Jess, you might need to flip my screen so I can show the accessibility features.
Oh, do you want to do it? So let me stop sharing. There you go.
Something that came up in the chat.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I'm going
to screen.
Can you see it?
Not just yet.
Okay. There's probably a lag time.
It's okay. You might want to try again. Maybe are you sharing application or sharing browser tab?
Okay, let me try again. That's right. I think you had to make me a presenter. Did that?
I did. Do I need to change anything?
I think you had to change me to a presenter for me to use that
There you go. I changed
the tab. Okay. So let me just go there. This is why Jesslyn's so awesome. She's a great support.
So if you need a password to get in, it's FlipGrid Skits in the chat window. FlipGrid Skits, exactly that.
Give me
capital F for FlipGrid, and everything else is lowercase. FlipGrid Skits, all one word. Do you want me to share, Kim?
I'm almost there.
Okay.
I promise I'm getting there. Almost there.
There
we go.
So feel free to explore if you're already in there. Kim's going to share her screen in just a second.
Can you confirm when you can see it? It should have worked now.
We got it. I can see it.
All right. So here is an example of a FlipGrid. And I want to let you know that all of these students gave me permission to share their work with you today. And what we're going to be doing in the first part is looking at the first 3 videos. But what I wanted to show you in this first video, and let me just pull it up and pause it, is there are accessibility options that I think are amazing. We have closed caption, but this tool here, the immersive reader that Microsoft has put in many of their products, I think is excellent. So you can see when I clicked on the immersive reader, the text came up. You have options to click on reading preferences. And in reading preferences, you can even choose for it to translate into a different language. There are options around text preferences. And so if people needed a different kind of font or a different type of background, there are those options. You have the option for it to read word by word or just play the entire thing. And so I really wanted to show you that because I saw in the chat a lot of people were concerned about accessibility, and certainly that is a concern that I had too.
Yeah,
So,
that was a really attractive feature when we found it, right? So not only
yeah.
when students put a video into a Flipgrid, it's automatically closed captioned, and there's a built-in accessible screen reader and translator for them. There's just such a beautiful experience.
Yeah, so I think what we were going to do now is give you about 5 minutes to go into the grid. Please view the first video, which is example of the skit that they would either upload or complete right in FlipGrid, the effective and ineffective communication scenario. And then Stephanie and Juanita's responses are responses that were to conversations going on within that grid. So that would take the place of the text-based discussion. So we're going to give you 5 minutes to do that.
So it would be too laggy if we tried to show you the video over like video chat. So just take 5 minutes right now and watch those first 3 videos. And once you're done watching them, just come back in here to Blackboard, collaborate, and raise your hand to let us know you're back. So it looks like Kelly Fox is back in. We're just waiting for a few more people to come back in to join the group.
We still have about 2 minutes left.
Oh, you got your timer working over there?
I do.
Nice. Let's see. Thank you for that update, Gina. So there's a really great question in the chat window that Michelle asking, are there any costs to be aware of? And Michelle, I'll go ahead and touch on that now since this session's being recorded. This is the other major asset to FlipGrid, is that FlipGrid is completely free. And FlipGrid is not, one of those products where you have to have a Microsoft account or you have to have a Google account or something like that. FlipGrid was acquired by Microsoft and has been made free for everyone everywhere. So anyone at any institution in any country could have a FlipGrid course or a FlipGrid account, and it's a completely free tool. There are no paywalls associated with this service.
Great.
So,
looks like many people are back in. Shall I proceed with some questions? So what we were wondering is, as you were watching those first 3 videos, what are some key observations that you saw, and how is that different from what you might typically see in a text-based discussion?
welcome to chat any of those answers into the chat window.
Yeah.
Just keep the conversation. Humber asks about Panopto. Is this similar? So Panopto might have some similar topics. It might have some similar assets or tools. If your organization has licensed Panopto and you have access to it, our philosophy here at Conestoga is to start with what you already have. And because this is out there, we just work with what's free and what's already out there. We have a service like Panopto, and we find that people are more likely to enjoy the experience of using something simpler like FlipGrid.
So I'm seeing some answers coming in, which was perfect because it lined up exactly with the course content, that you can hear tone, emotions are well presented in the video, there's clear articulation of ideas, social presence, and body language. So those were exactly things that they were to have targeted. And I know that one of the questions earlier was people were wondering about how difficult it might be to mark video. And I actually found it fun to mark and easier to mark because their face is right there in front of me, almost to the point where I was getting out of some household duties at home and my husband wanted to know if I was watching YouTube instead of doing my marking as I claimed.
I like that. Are you actually doing your grading?
Yeah.
Yes, I promise.
Yeah.
So I guess another follow-up question is, do you think that using FlipGrid might have changed the assessment experience for these students? How do you think that students would rate the experience of using FlipGrid as opposed to posting a topic in a discussion board? Greg points out something that you observed, Kim, is that the video allows people to practice, so repetition and increased learning. And certainly, yeah, they never had to post a video in the first place until they felt it was ready. And then they didn't have to post a response until they felt they had built a great response. So if they stumbled or if they were working on language acquisition, maybe if English wasn't their first language, if they felt embarrassed about what they had made their statement to be at first, they could go back and redo it.
So I see there's a question about anxiety and not showing faces. Now, for this particular assessment, I wanted to assess body language and facial expression and tone of voice. So I did ask that they show their faces, but in other contexts of assessments, certainly they could put a sticker. You see how some of them have a sticker in their selfie photo, but they could put a sticker over their face, or they could flip the camera around and, just not show themselves if that was a problem.
And our awareness of these types of issues is complemented by like FlipGrid's awareness of these kinds of issues. So Carrie points out that she's heard rumblings that pixelating faces is now an option. And it's very likely that things like that that facilitate privacy, if they don't already exist in a tool like this, are going to be added in pretty expeditiously, certainly as it starts to be used more in a variety of educational contexts. So, Christy, I hope that answers some of your questions about not being comfortable on video or if they have anxiety. Just the fact that they can redo it over and over again until they feel comfortable with it, and they only have to reveal as much about their identity as they choose. You can see that even FlipGrid by default allows them to put in their own name, and it just uses a last initial. It doesn't necessarily identify students by name. It's not tied to a roster or anything like that. So students can also self-identify. If they have a name that they go by that isn't their conventional name, they would be able to use that as well.
And I just want to say that Kelly has a question. She's had her hand up for a bit.
Oh, we missed it. Sorry.
Sorry, Kelly. I thought that was from when we were checking people in. Kelly, what would you like to ask? No, it was from checking in. Julita, you have your hand up too. If everyone can clear off, like lower your hands if you are not currently interested in asking a question.
So I did see, are they able to do audio only without video? Yep, the sort of answer to that would be just to flip the camera around. There is a new whiteboard feature. I haven't personally tried that one out, but there were a lot of features that have been added since I used this last. So there may be even more coming. How accurate is the closed captioning? I didn't think it was super accurate at first, but I think part of that comes down to, if they were to use a microphone, that might have been better. Things I learned, I guess you would say. If they did the video in some other format, they might be able to have a little closed captioning better and load it up. But I think that and Jess, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's learning as they chat in it, so it should get clearer. Am I correct in that thought?
Yeah, it's Microsoft's closed captioning service. So I find that the accuracy is improving daily, and it's approximately anywhere between 85 to 95% accurate, given things like does the person have a microphone like near their mouth or in the vicinity, and what is the dialect with which they speak English. So those are factors to consider, but the 85 to 95% accuracy standard is pretty good, considering that many of the alternatives there is none. And I believe that these captions are editable. So a student could go in and say, that caption is incorrect, I want to fix that.
There's a question out there. It says, do you think this tool will minimize cheating? It's less likely to pay someone to complete an asynchronous online course if they have to complete these types of activities. In this particular instance, it is a face-to-face class, but I certainly think it would be a deterrent because you're actually putting your face and your voice. So if you were to catch them later, there'd be no contest whether it was them or not.
And there's a question about downloading a transcript of the video. Here in FlipGrid, I'm not sure if that service is available, but again, these tools collect feedback from users, and so if that's a feature that you want, the more people that ask for it, and the more likely they are to develop it. And I know Microsoft has that functionality in other services, so they can easily transfer that. Also, when Kim was showing that immersive reader experience, that immersive reader experience is printable. Yeah. And it's also copy and pastable. So I would argue that yes, you can get a transcript of the audio if you wanted it, as long as you have the ability to either print or copy and paste. So are students aware of the terms of service, especially this Part 3.2 license? To the extent necessary to provide services to you and to others to protect the services, you grant to us a worldwide and royalty-free intellectual property license to use or use the content posted on this service. For example, to make copies of, retain, transmit, display, and distribute via communication tools, user content on the services. So that's pretty par for the course for a lot of these types of services. FlipGrid is behind a login. And so students will need to log in with a Google or Microsoft account in order to use this service. And if they wanted that to be a generic, like not associated with any of their personal data email account, they could set that up absolutely. And certainly the recommendation here at Conestoga is that whenever you use a tool like this, it's an option, not a mandatory choice. So students can choose to opt out, they can choose to participate in a variety of ways. Kim, did you have any students who looked at this and said, I don't feel comfortable here, or who felt that the constraints were
Well,
too much?
I handled it a couple ways. I made sure that they had to use their, you can set it up so they have to use their Microsoft Conestoga account. And so in that sense, there maybe would be a feeling that it wasn't going outside, other than the students today who gave me written permission. I only had pushback from one student who she just didn't like to see herself on video. And so we talked about some other opportunities that she could earn the grades. And in the end, she decided to participate with her group. She just didn't want to watch herself. So when she did her responses, she did them to groups that weren't herself. So, you know, I certainly think with any assessment, you need to be aware that you have to have some type of alternative.
And to be fair to that student, I don't even like listening, like I won't listen to
For sure.
and certainly when we ask students to participate a little bit more interactively, there's going to be students who say like, ooh, this is so different from the rest of my classes. I'm not sure about this experience. But I think overall, your students seem to latch on to this as a way of giving each other feedback. And they liked the variety. Like when I came and visited your class, Kim, they were all into this. They were like, this is what we're going to do. We have a chance to like give it back. And certainly many of them feel really comfortable with selfie-based video products like Instagram stories or Facebook stories. And Snapchat. And so this kind of brings their assessment experience into the vein of their daily life experience.
And for sure, there would always be the option to present it live, as was done in the past. So if there really was a problem that someone did not want to put themselves out there, that would always be an option for sure.
So I want to touch base and see if there are any emerging questions. I see one or two hands are up. So if those people would like to turn on their mic or just post a question in the chat window, they're more than welcome to. Dawn is wondering about the potential for the content to be used by FlipGrid. The college is okay with this. So FlipGrid, I haven't seen any of our content posted publicly from FlipGrid. FlipGrid's team typically would reach out and say, hey, you're using this in an innovative way. Would you give consent for us to use this in promotional materials? They haven't approached us to ask about using our promotional materials. Certainly, they take cues from things like Kim locked this behind a login that was associated with Conestoga's college identifiers, and she put passwords on things. That would be a signal to them that this is really not content that we're comfortable posting entirely publicly. I think they more often approach the people who create a FlipGrid and make it totally public. In theory, they don't need to check with users, though. Yep, in theory, they don't need to check with users. That statement or that claim in their privacy agreement, though, exists in almost every privacy agreement that you'll see out there. Yeah. I would think, though, that these providers are in the K-12 sphere. They're perfectly aware of the regulations on them according to Canadian privacy law, American privacy law, and now European privacy law. They're not just taking your content and posting it wherever they would like. They're usually pretty proactive in reaching out and requesting permission, which you can decline at any point in time. Certainly, you wouldn't want to have to go back to all of your students and say, can we use your videos for this intent? So again, like everything about this, even your access into this mixtape right now to these consenting students was behind a login, it's behind a password. You choose the degree to which this is open. And this is a product that's intended to be free for educators. Michelle Munton says, I think if anything, it's the data that they would be collecting and potentially selling, not the videos. What is most likely that they're interested in collecting is data about how you use the tool. They just want to see how you use the tool, what your intentions are for it pedagogically, and as a classroom discussion engager. They're not really interested in showing this person's video of their response. They're interested in seeing how you're using it as a teaching and educative tool.
So, Shin Lee has a great question that probably relates to that study that I took the quote from, Jess, do you think? She's asking, this seems like a great tool for communication-related courses. Anyone think it might be good for STEM? And I think in that study, what they did is they had students discuss what they did with their projects and then had other students respond to that. So I think it has potential for STEM in the sense of in demonstration purposes, but there is that 5-minute maximum per video to be aware of.
Take a second and I'm going to share that study out with everyone. So I actually have a PDF loaded here, and I think that it's this one, Reflection and Learning by Bo Chang from Ball State University. And this study was actually really interesting, Kim, because it pointed out that the peer feedback is really beneficial and helpful for learners, and it extended it into, can tools like this be used as a self-reflection tool? So maybe have an initial post at the beginning of the year of a student saying, here's what I know on this topic, and have regular postings where they reply to themselves, reflecting back on the learning that they've accumulated thus far in the semester. And at the end, they have sort of a discussion with themselves about their trajectory of learning. So that might be another application that could be applied in different contexts.
Yeah, definitely. I'm wondering, Jess, just due to time, if I might share a couple challenges and benefits, and then we can get everyone an opportunity to go in and give it a try. So a couple things that I did not anticipate happening is that students would use high resolution cameras and not their cell phones. And so this, on the day that they wanted to upload their video to FlipGrid, there was a resolution issue. But what I want to tell you that was kind of cool that came out of that was people started to problem solve. So Jesslyn actually came in, she was an awesome support, identified what the problem was, asked the students, well, you know, what have you done so far? And then they started to problem solve themselves into finding a solution. And I thought, you know, how often do we think, how can we teach problem solving, critical thinking skills? And it just sort of came out of that. And they were, once they got past that little bit of frustration, they were quite excited then to problem solve what the issue was. That was really my only big challenge. And so what I learned from that was to give them time to sort that out. But one of the really big benefits that I found, particularly with this assessment, is that when making a video response as opposed to a text-based response, students have to be aware about how they're being perceived. And while, yes, that's what we were learning in this course, I think it would be true across other contexts as well. Video responses have that feel of a face-to-face conversation. And so I think that, you know, it kind of says to the student, you need to reflect upon this. You need to think about how you're going to be perceived, and then you need to make that connection to course content to give that feedback to your co-students. And so I think the learning is deeper. I was sold on that for sure. But we wanted to give you an opportunity to try out FlipGrid. So Jesslyn, were you going to take over from here? Do you want the screen back?
I will definitely start sharing. So let me just pull open my screen, and I want to take you into the experience of using a FlipGrid. So Kim has set up one here called ETCFlipgrid Skits 2019. And to join the FlipGrid Skit, you're able to pull it up. You can use in the chat window. You can use you can use the FlipGrid app. So if you have a phone on you and you want to install the app and try it out, go ahead and install FlipGrid. It's a free app. Alternatively, you can link to it. You can jump into the link. I'll post that in the chat window as well. There's the link to the FlipGrid Skits 2019 that I'm showing right now. And what we'd like to give you is the opportunity to kind of try it out. The password, when it prompts for a password, if it prompts for a password, would also be FlipGrid Skits. This one will also be locked down within 24 hours, so don't worry about this being out there forever. It'll be turned off soon. And I just want to kind of orient you to the FlipGrid environment. So this is exactly the student experience of coming into a FlipGrid. They see a title, a banner, they see that this week's topic is introductions. Maybe you posted a little GIF or a video of yourself and saying, welcome to our FlipGrid community. This is a space where we can connect our classrooms and share experiences. Tap the green plus button below to open the FlipGrid camera, then start a short video and introduce yourself, telling us a little bit about you if you feel comfortable with that. Do you think so far that FlipGrid might enhance your teaching practice, or share an idea for a way that you might use FlipGrid in your own teaching? And so when you come in here, you can see an example of Kim has already made a post. You can post your own by clicking that big green plusy button. It'll prompt you for a login. Go ahead and do that. And then it'll prompt you to allow your camera and microphone, and then it'll take you right into the selfie video. And you'll be able to post whatever you're comfortable with. So you should be able to notice that you're able, sorry, I closed the screen. You're able to just kind of post whatever you feel comfortable with, kind of show each other, tell each other a little bit about how you imagine you might take it. And what it'll do is compile a little collection just like this of different posts that you posted as a FlipGrid. So if you are in the app, you might want to see, let me just pull this one open. You might want to see the quick connection. Students also do have the ability to kind of do this a little bit more live. There's a QR code generator built into here. And so if they were in class, they could just pull open the app on their phone. So always thinking mobile first. And they could either type in your room number here, it's Kim's, it's Carter 2976, or they could use the scanner that's built into the app to scan that QR code while they're trying to join. And then they would just be able to start posting their selfie videos in response to a discussion prompt that you had posted for them. So go ahead and try that out if you would like. We're also going to take a minute. And let me just flip my screen, stop sharing this one. I'm going to share tab, ETCFlipgridSkits, there we go. So we're looking forward to kind of seeing the responses as they accumulate. And I want to take a minute too and kind of give you a brief introduction to how to get started with FlipGrid. So to get started with FlipGrid, it just looks like going to flipgrid.com. And you can see that right here on the main page, there's an educator sign up. It's free. They collect a little bit of demographic information from you. So they'll collect things like what institution do you work for. Remember, FlipGrid is entirely free. Microsoft has made it a free product. There is not going to be a paywall that you encounter as you try to interact with this service. Microsoft has made the commitment that FlipGrid will always be free, and they're using it to integrate into other key services that they have. So you'll see FlipGrid pop up in things like your OneDrive. You'll see it pop up in things like Teams if your organization is using those, or you can just use it as a standalone on its own. Only give them the demographic information that you're comfortable with giving out. And I'll invite you to, if you're here on flipgrid.com with me, that they have an entire section called Resources. And in that Resources section, FlipGrid has tons of getting started information. They have a getting started guide, and they actually run regular 30-minute PD sessions at a variety of times. There's even one coming up next week where they teach you how to get started using FlipGrid. So they have a training and mentorship team They have a whole bunch of webinars that you could register for in order to learn yourself. Kim, did you attend any webinars when you were learning how to use FlipGrid, or did you find it was pretty
It was pretty intuitive. I didn't attend webinars through FlipGrid specifically. I am part of the Microsoft Innovative Educator group, and so they do have small videos there, and usually anything with Microsoft I've been going through there because you can earn badges, a little plug if you like badges. But certainly the resources here, if you want just FlipGrid, that would be an excellent source.
And somebody asks if there's a browser preferred for FlipGrid. Honestly, there shouldn't be. If the tool is going to work, it should work in every single browser. I usually use Chrome. We know that Chrome has about 70% of the market share that's out there, whether that's good or bad. But we know that Firefox is also a heavy contender. And Internet Explorer, we can expect things to not be compatible with that as a primary browser coming over the next 5 years or so. So I don't usually test things out in that browser. FlipGrid is browser-based. It should work in everything. Have you tried anything?
I did find an edge that the closed captioning doesn't always show. So I had advised students to try Chrome. Seemed to have the less problems, but that seemed to be the only issue. I mean, the picture was fine, the audio was fine, but the closed captioning didn't always show for some reason.
Mm-hmm. And certainly, as you try out the tool, if you come into those bumps and hurdles, FlipGrid looks for feedback. They have a whole arena where you can, if you're on Twitter, you could just say, hey, FlipGrid, your product doesn't work in whatever it is, and then they will hear that, hopefully. I usually find they're pretty prompt and responsive. So I want to take another opportunity to just kind of check in with everyone and see if there are more questions, see if you're interested in kind of learning more about FlipGrid. I'm wondering if people are a little cautious about interacting with this tool. I don't see too many posts coming up just yet. Some people typing, so I want to give them the...
Yeah. Oh, no camera on the computer. Yeah, cell phone sometimes works the best.
No camera on the computer. That's okay. Like we said, this FlipGrid will be open for a little while. So if you want to kind of keep it open, or again, right, this is a smartphone-based experience. So if you have a smartphone and you feel comfortable using it for your working context, download the FlipGrid app. And
this is a really good point. Sometimes it's hard to concentrate on the speaker and play around with new technology, and that's a great observation because it's the same for our students.
Yeah, and feel free, there is a recording of this session, so you can always come back to this to get that FlipGrid code, or you can reach out to either Kim or I. We're both on Twitter, and we follow the ETC Twitter hashtag, so at what is that? At EdTech Ontario, so you can find us through that. And if you have any questions about it, or you're curious about the applicability of this tool for your own teaching, you're more than welcome to reach out to us in the coming days.
Oh, Humber said they posted a video, Jess. Do you see it?
Yay, maybe I just need to refresh my page. Watch. There we go.
Yay!
Awesome. There we go for your college viewing party.
I love the glasses somebody put on. That's cool.
Yeah. When in doubt, just refresh your page. So this would be what it would look like for everyone to post their initial discussion, and then you would see follow-up little bubbles with each of the replies. So it certainly builds like a little conversation going on. People can kind of have face-to-face discussion. There's a little bit of setup when it comes to being the instructor to set up the course, but all of that is in the interest of keeping things private, keeping things secure, and making things as shareable in a variety of ways as possible. Yeah. So it looks like Louise is advising about the next webinar that'll be coming along, which is One small change to benefit learners, supporting faculty and staff to level up. It's on October 23rd from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. And I hope to see you all there. I'll be in that one as well, just as a participant, making sure that I hear what good ideas are going on from that team. And like we said, just get in there and experiment. It's a free service. It's intended for a variety of audiences, and we hope that you might find that FlipGrid is applicable for your teaching. Yay.
So I just wanted to thank everyone for coming. And just in summary, today you had an opportunity to observe some examples of FlipGrid as a learning and an assessment tool. You had an opportunity to hear me share my experience and some cautions around high resolution cameras and using FlipGrid as a video app. And hopefully, I saw some of you responded to our FlipGrid, but maybe others will in the next 4 hours. Evaluate through your FlipGrid responses the applicability of FlipGrid in your own teaching. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask.
Yeah, please do that. We'll answer